Hello, I'm Esther Gitu. Welcome to Africa 54. Here's what's coming up. U.S. President Joe Biden is weighing a military response to the deaths of 3 U.S. service members in Jordan in a drone strike. A gas explosion rocks the Kenyan capital just before midnight. At least 3 people were killed and 300 injured. And in our entertainment report, a preview of one of Africa's premier music festivals, Heather Maxwell has insight into what's in store for festival goers, and popular VOA French radio host Roger Muntu joins Heather for the discussion. All this and much more coming up on today's Africa 54. We begin our broadcast as U.S. President Joe Biden weighs military responses to the death of 3 U.S. service members in Jordan last Sunday in a drone strike the White House attributed to Iranian-backed militias. VOA congressional correspondent Catherine Gibson has more.
The deaths of 3 U.S. service members at a military base in Jordan on Sunday will not go unanswered, U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin told reporters Thursday. Despite fears a U.S. response could escalate regional tensions.
So this is a dangerous moment in the Middle East. We will continue to work to avoid a wider conflict in the region. But we will take all necessary actions to defend the United States, our interests, and our people. And we will respond when we choose, where we choose, and how we choose.
Iran-backed militants have carried out 166 attacks on U.S. forces in Iraq, Syria, and Jordan since the October 7th Hamas attack on Israel. Iran has denied responsibility for the attack that killed 3 U.S. service members and says it is not deterred by a potential U.S. response.
You know that we do not leave any threats unanswered. While we are not looking for war, we are not afraid of war, and we do not run away from it.
On Capitol Hill, some Democratic senators are concerned a U.S. response could rapidly escalate a military conflict before lawmakers have a chance to authorize war.
This is an escalating war in the Middle East. The U.S. is getting drawn more and more into it. There's no congressional authorization for the U.S. participation in another war in the Middle East, so the time is probably now right for Congress to begin that discussion.
But lawmakers also recognize the need for a strong U.S. response.
Anyone who attacks the troops and puts Americans in harm's way is going to do everything we can to defend our citizens and our troops especially, and let them know that this is not going to be tolerated and they'll have to pay extreme prices for it.
Earlier this week, top Senate Republican Mitch McConnell said the Biden administration's policies had increased the threat posed by Iran.
For 3 years, the threat of Iran-backed terror against American personnel and interests in the Middle East has been growing. Iran is emboldened and believes it can use its proxies to attack America with impunity. And the Biden administration has hastened this erosion of deterrence. Their public hand-wringing and fear of escalation sends exactly the wrong message to Tehran.
And other Republican lawmakers said Thursday any response should be carefully calibrated.
I'd like to know the president has a plan to not just stop this, but to put Iran in a position they will never do this again.
The U.S. has responded to previous attacks on U.S. service members with actions including an October strike on a weapons storage site in Syria used by Iranian-backed militias. Catherine Gibson, VOA News.
The United States says it will work with the United Nations to find other ways of providing humanitarian assistance to the civilians in Gaza. U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Linda Thomas-Greenfield gave the assurance during an interview with VOA's Heidi Adams, host of Straight Talk Africa. Israel accuses at least a dozen of the agency's workers of involvement in the October 7th attacks. Thomas-Greenfield spoke about the impact of the funding pause.
What the report of members of UNRWA, 12 members of UNRWA's staff, engaging in the horrific attacks on Israel on October 7th were really, really horrific. They are unacceptable. And we have supported the UN's decision to relieve these people of their connections with UNRWA. And we are supporting their efforts to further investigate this situation. They came to us with this information early on, and we made the decision that it was important that we react in an appropriate way. We are UNRWA's largest funder. We will continue to work with the UN to find ways to provide humanitarian assistance to the people of Gaza. And we will continue to have our people on the ground every single day working to ensure that that assistance is delivered to people on the ground. This is a temporary pause. We're waiting for the results of the final investigation by the UN and their review of UNRWA's work in the region. And we will continue to work with the UN as they provide support to Palestinian refugees who are living in Jordan, living in Syria, and living in Lebanon. So our commitment to humanitarian assistance is ironclad, but we felt it was important that we send this strong message to UNRWA while this investigation continues to develop additional information.
And ma'am, will this funding affect any pledges that were made for 2024? I know there is talk of it affecting additional funding, but does that affect any pledges made for this year?
We made some early contributions to UNRWA that I know that they are using, and there are other countries who have made contributions as well. But we will work with the UN as they move forward to find mechanisms to ensure that Palestinians continue to get the needed assistance, the needed life-saving assistance that the UN has been providing.
That was U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, speaking to Haiti Adams, host of VOA Straight Talk Africa program. You can catch the rest of that interview on voaafrica.com. Meanwhile, the White House is imposing sanctions on Israeli settlers accused of violence. For insight on this new development, I'm joined live from here in Washington by Bruce Fine, an American lawyer specializing in constitutional and international law. Hello, Bruce.
Hey, how are you today? Good.
Yes. How effective are President Biden's sanctions on Israeli settlers accused of violence in the West Bank?
I think it's clearly a political gambit for 2024 for Mr. Biden. It looks rather anemic. There are 4 settlers who will be banned from commercial transactions or entering the United States. They probably never had any intent to come here anyway. And the reason why it looks anemic is as we see the grisliness in Gaza, which, at least as a preliminary matter, the International Court of Justice has suggested is a genocide because you're creating conditions of life calculated to physically destroy a people in whole or in part. If you don't have any food or water or medicine, you're not likely to live long. And there's nothing that the president did to suggest anything's changing with regard to Gaza on the ground. Now, it's also important to note that Israel is the one that has authority over these 4 West Bank individuals to prosecute them if they are engaged in criminal activity, which is what Mr. Biden's executive order declared.
Right, Bruce.
But Mr. Biden has not said that if Israel lets these settlers free with impunity, that there'll be any sanctions or any withholding of aid. Yeah. So I think this is a very, very weak indication, and we just know that Mr. Biden was out in Detroit trying to rally some of Palestinian Americans behind his 2024 bid. I'm not saying that's unique to Mr. Biden. All candidates in an election year care only about one thing.
Okay, Bruce, let's move to the next issue here, because Secretary of State Anthony Blinken also said the U.S. will take action to advance the viability of a 2-state solution and, the dignity of Israelis and Palestinians alike. How long would this take, to become a reality?
No, he stated, this is not the first time he stated that. And Mr. Netanyahu, the prime minister, has stated repeatedly, that's dead on arrival. There's not going to be any Palestinian governing authority in Gaza after Israel so-called completes victory. So he can say all that he wants to do. The fact is that Israel in its politics would never agree to a two-state solution unless they confronted some kind of enormous international sanctions at the UN Security Council, which is an institution that does have authority to impose universal global sanctions. But the United States has already shown with its unilateral veto power that it will protect Israel the same way it has ever since October 7th diplomatically. So this is just a pipe dream. I think Mr. Blinken is saying that. Again, it's rhetoric that does some use in the 2024 campaign, but otherwise this is nothing new. And no more new than the sun rising in the east and setting in the west.
We know this has really been a contentious issue. It has polarized a lot of nations, depending on which side of, fence you're looking at this issue. But does this signal a shift in the U.S. policy towards Palestine?
No, it's not a shift. We've had that position for decades. If Israel doesn't agree, there's no nation on the world that says we are going to attack Israel and impose a two-state solution. Israel right now is adamantly opposed to a two-state solution. It's not going to happen unless and until, the United States decides that it's willing actually to risk alienation of Israel and demand a two-state solution by military means or economic boycotts, that it has a ghost of a chance of survival. And I can repeat over and over again, for every time Mr. Blinken has said we're in favor of a two-state solution, Mr. Netanyahu has said it's not going anywhere. And Israel is the one that's the decider here, because right now they're the ones who occupy the land that would be part of the two-state solution.
Oh, wow, Bruce. Looks like we're far off to get this
over.
over.
You are very far off. And I say this not in any glee, but we need to be earthbound here. And don't get away and thinking these politicians, just by uttering fanciful statements, think there's any progress. There's not. This is a two-state solution has been on the table for decades. Hasn't gotten past first base, maybe not even past home plate.
Wow. Bruce, thank you so much for your insight.
Thank you.
Bruce Fine is a lawyer specializing in constitutional and international law. Now to East Africa, where a gas truck explosion in Kenya on Friday has killed at least 3 people and injured 300, according to authorities and first responders. The fire in Nairobi's Embakasi neighborhood started shortly before midnight at a gas company, badly damaging its building. Officials say the company was refilling gas cylinders when the fire erupted.
I received a call from one of our staff who is a resident at this area about the explosion, and immediately we activated our emergency response team. We dispatched the fire engines and also the ambulances. Right now they are at the scene and we are trying to evacuate the victims.
The Kenyan Red Cross was on the scene and says some people were being treated at a triage point. Still to come, VOA's Roger Muntu joins Heather Maxwell to talk about a popular African music festival. Stay with us.
For ladies in urban areas, social media is no doubt the place where their outfits and hairstyle choices will most likely be displayed at the end of the events they attend. As such, their fashion choices are not just for a group of close family friends to admire, but also up for judgment and appreciation by people around the world. Thus, lots of consideration is exercised. On this week's episode of Our Voices, we speak to fashion experts on how the best looks are coordinated and even on a budget. Join the conversation each week right here on Our Voices.
You're watching VOA's Red Carpet. My name is Jackson Vunganyi. Thank you so much for joining us each week right here on Red Carpet. We bring you the latest in
In other news, French nationals are no longer being allowed to fly into Niger, according to airline sources, as the rift between Paris and Niamey deepens following last year's military coup. Nigerian officials say any passenger of French nationality is no longer authorized to enter Nigerian territory. Ethiopian lawmakers are extending a state of emergency in the northern region of Amhara, where fierce fighting erupted last year. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed imposed a 6-month state of emergency in August, giving the authorities sweeping powers to arrest people, impose curfews, and ban public gatherings. And Senegal's presidential race begins Sunday with anti-establishment candidate Bassirou Diomaye Faye in jail, according to his aides. Faye has been in prison since 2023, but his candidacy was approved by authorities, making him the first imprisoned candidate to contest a Senegalese election. CEOs of big social media companies testified before the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee this week about child safety on their platforms. VOA's Paul Ndiho reports.
U.S. senators on Capitol Hill this week grilled leaders of the biggest social media companies. They say Congress must act quickly and pass legislation to protect children from escalating threats on social media. Several media executives, including Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg, testified and were confronted by angry members of Congress.
Social media companies, as they are currently designed and operate, are dangerous products. They're destroying lives, threatening democracy itself. These companies must be reined in, or the worst is yet to come. Hopefully we can take your pain and turn it into something positive so nobody else has to hold up a sign. Mr. Zuckerberg, you and the companies before us, I know you don't mean it to be so, but you have blood on your hands.
Zuckerberg apologized to families at the U.S. Senate hearing about social media's impact on children.
I'm sorry for everything that you all have knowing that have to go through the things that your families have suffered. And this is why we invested so much and are going to continue doing industry-leading efforts to make sure that no one has to go through the types of things that your families have had to suffer.
The hearing was the latest effort by lawmakers to address the concerns of parents who say that social media companies are putting profits over making sure the platforms do not harm children. Ghanaian tech enthusiast Joshua Opuku Ajamang says that regulation for these tech companies is essential to keep up with the emerging technologies.
Regulators need to be able to catch up, because the regulators are also not willing to invest into researching, to understanding, to learning from innovators. It's going to be difficult for them to regulate them. Innovators are going to take the risk, invest their resources to explore new territory. And if regulators are not willing to do the same, then innovators are always going to be 10 to 20 steps ahead of regulators, and always have to push and see the challenges before regulators can come in.
Under U.S. law, social media platforms are primarily shielded from legal liability about content shared on their sites. Now, U.S. lawmakers are looking at ways of removing protections they enjoy under what is known as Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, that grants them immunity from most types of content on their sites. Paul Ndiho, VOA News, Washington.
Rwandans and Friends of Rwanda are gathering here in Washington for the 2-day annual Rwanda Day festivities at the Gaylord National Resort and Convention Center. And for more, I'm joined live by VOA's Jackson Vungani. Hello, Jackson. Tell us, what is Rwanda Day all about?
Hi, Esther. Yes, I'm here at the National Harbor right outside of the Washington, D.C. It's a cold, freezing morning, but I don't think that is going to stop the festivities that are about to happen here at the Rwanda Day, which is an event that brings together Rwandans from around the world, especially here in North America, and to gather, to commemorate, to communicate, to just enjoy each other. And I'm here with Catherine Rivanga. She's the president president of the Rwandans in the diaspora here in the Washington, D.C. area. She's one of the organizers. And I wanted to ask her, put out the question to you, Kathy, what is Rwanda Day?
Thank you, Jason, and thank you, Jackson, and thank you for having me today. Rwanda Day really is one of Rwanda's biggest events that takes place outside of Rwanda and brings together Rwandans, friends of Rwanda, to connect with Rwanda, talk about business opportunities, investments, and all things Rwanda.
Right. How do you feel about the fact that it's this is the first time it's happening? What, after the COVID, 4 years since it last happened, but it's happening in Washington D.C. for the first time. How do you feel about that?
I'll answer the first question as how do I feel about it happening for the first time since COVID?
Yeah.
The feeling it can be experienced through the numbers that we have. We have over 13,000 people that have registered to come and be part of the Rwanda Day today. So many people have come from Rwanda, Canada, England, Belgium, France, and of course Rwandans from across America.
Yeah.
So, and for me, obviously, it's very important because it's happening in the Washington D.C. area, and I happen to be, the presiding president of the community, and I'm very excited. I cannot wait. It's just an honor to have it in the capital. So it's just surreal is the word.
13,000, that's a lot of people there. What are you looking forward to?
Oh my goodness, I'm looking forward to obviously listening to our President Paul Kagame, meeting people that I haven't seen in a long time, taking part in the exhibition, the business forum, which is actually taking place this afternoon. We have some made in Rwanda items that are going to be sold. We have a career fair that is also it will be the first time that we'll have a career fair where we connect Rwandans in the USA that would like to be mentored or looking for work, businesses that want to do work either in America or in Rwanda.
To invest in Rwanda.
Exactly, to invest in Rwanda.
Yeah, so Esther, this is Kathleen Rivanga. She's the president of the Rwandan Association here in the DMV area. As you can see, she's very excited. Everybody, we've had, thousands of people walking into the Gaylord. Behind me is the National Harbor Hotel. It's going to be an exciting weekend, Esther. Back to you.
Definitely exciting. 2,000 people, too many Rwandese nationals. Very patriotic. Jackson, thank you very much. VOA's Jackson Vunganyi live here in Washington, D.C. Now it's time for our entertainment report, and joining us now is Heather Maxwell. Hello, Heather.
Hello, Esther. Yes, African music fans are preparing to soon flock to East Africa. Let's take a look.
Out of hundreds of music festivals happening every year in Africa, the best and the brightest come down to a handful. And Sauti za Busara, that's Swahili for sounds of wisdom, is one of them. Next weekend, on the exquisite island of Zanzibar in East Africa, the festival runs its 21st edition. Its mission is to celebrate the richness and diversity of African music, and here's where it gets unique and exciting. It gives priority to music that is African, diverse, unique, women artists, young and emerging talents, full of energy, and 100% live. The music happens in the historical city of Stone Town on 3 stages, and there are about 25 acts from all over the continent, including Made Kuti from Nigeria, Selor Mutukudzi from Zimbabwe, Zoe Modiga from South Africa, Wakazi from Tanzania, and many, many more.
Okay, so I spoke with Made Kuti, one of the headliners performing at Sauti, and the grandson of the Afrobeat icon Fela Kuti from his home in Lagos. And we will get to that in a moment. But first, Roger Muntu, host of VOA's RM show, is with me to talk about Zanzibar.
Zanzibar, that's where it's all happening again,
yes,
right?
Zanzibar. So we were both in Tanzania recently. I wasn't able to go to Zanzibar this time, though I did go in 2017. But you slipped off.
Yeah.
And had a good time there. So.
I had to go to Zanzibar. I had to. First of all, I wanted to know where Sauti za Busara is going to happen, right?
Right.
Which you know, means sounds of wisdom.
Yes.
And I really felt that when I was in Zanzibar, because I had to explore the arts, the culture, and things like that when I was there. And of course, the beautiful scenery and all.
And you were dancing.
I was dancing in some villages.
Yes.
I went dancing with the villagers, and I was swimming with turtles and all those things that I was doing there.
Did you know the dances? Did they seem completely different?
No, well, no, I did not, and that's a good thing. See, as you see, me dancing there, they were actually teaching me how to dance.
I can see that.
Yeah, they were actually teaching me.
You were keeping up.
But look, you know, I got my move. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, you know what I'm saying? I got this. I had to.
Yes, of
I had to
course.
represent the U.S., man. Look. But it was just great.
What about this?
Swimming. That's me swimming with. This is one of the things that I could never thought I could do in my life.
I don't think I would.
I was scared. I was really afraid to do this.
Yeah, but
right?
they were friendly enough.
They were friendly enough, and they were hugging me left and right. And as I was telling you, you know, I had to protect myself, right?
But you survived. You're here in one piece.
I survived.
As far as we can see.
Exactly. I survived. I survived.
Well, it's too bad that neither of us are going.
That's what I was thinking. I wish we could. Yeah, exactly.
But,
and that's next weekend already.
Yeah, it's next weekend already. Now, getting back to what's happening there next weekend, here is Grammy-nominated Afrobeat musician Made Kuti on the matter.
Made Kuti, it's nice to meet you.
It's a pleasure to meet you too.
I want to hear how you are feeling about the upcoming performance in Zanzibar at Sauti za Busara.
I'm very excited. I know my band is extremely excited. It's the first time we're playing in an African country outside of Nigeria. And we were fortunate enough to play in Paris 2 years ago. But this time it's something special because a lot of us have never been to East Africa. So there's an entire culture there that we want to, you know, experience, the beautiful people. We hear Zanzibar is a wonderful place to be. I've never been there myself, so I'm looking forward to it. I know we're very ready. We have a lot of new numbers we want to share, and the band is excited, so I'm sure it'll be great.
That's fantastic.
Wow, Roger, Made Kuti.
Legendary.
I know
That's what I can tell you. This is a legendary family going there, as you just mentioned.
Yes.
First time ever.
And guess what?
Yeah.
He told me later that he just got married, and so they're going to extend the vacation and make it a vacation for him.
What an occasion,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Wow, an opportunity to just do both at the same time.
I told him he should swim with the turtles.
Yeah, right. Not everybody can do that.
Maybe his wife will, too.
Yeah, who knows? Exactly.
That could be something.
Right.
Well, anyway, I'm sure that anyone who goes to the festival next weekend is going to have an amazing time. Thank you, Roger. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
It's great.
Esther, back to you.
Thank you, Heather, and thank you, Roger. Be sure to join Heather Maxwell's Entertainment Reports every Friday right here on Africa 54. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, have a great weekend.